Travis been good, so. So, as YouTube has shut me down from watching YouTube, I am not inclined to do videos anymore, unless inspired. And so thus, this morning I woke up with Genesis 1 on my mind, so we'll give you the video. If you've been following me, at least this year, you will see what led up to this ban by YouTube. Nothing that I did other than expose the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as being a fraud, lying to us, and committing crimes for the sole purpose of overthrowing the government and murdering Mormons so that they can be caught up into Jesus in the clouds. And I have associative memory, and so I don't forget. I may not be able to quote, and when I talk about things, if I don't have them written down, I will leave things out and bring them up in another conversation where I leave other things out. That's why the necessity of reference books, as you can see by the boxes. And so, yeah, I've seen the whole thing leading up to it, because when I file complaints with YouTube, when I do videos talking about how YouTube's AI can't figure me out, it gets angry and attacks. And so, yeah, this is what I've been exposed to. This is the threat of AI. And so, people just don't want to believe that this is the case. And yet, nobody wants to try logical Socratic methodology in their theory development of science-based research to perform the tests necessary and produce the results with 3 confirmations to establish facts. I did it. AI is evil and needs to be shut down permanently. We cannot allow it to continue to exist. It was easy to do, and I sacrificed my channel to do it. But my channel is about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And YouTube, since my #1 video still to this day, back in July 2017, have been censoring my video content from the rest of the world who would want to see it. I mean, if I got 40,000 for that one, obviously people want to watch my channel, whether they agree with me or not. But YouTube has kept you from my channel. And so the majority of you, well, I think pretty much most of you, have not been with me from 2017. If there are any of you from 2017, please let yourself be known. Because you'll know that I used to switch back and forth from TWG to Travis Wayne Goodsell. But this year I'm not doing that, because this is it. This is the final countdown. This election, we have already been told we're all gonna die. And it's pathetic that even our press are involved in this plot, because they keep telling us that we are subject to the stock market. And so I recall back when I was allowed to watch YouTube and thus watch the news, that they kept talking about how the stock market is up, the stock market is down, oh no. They're trying to equate the stock market with the economy. And when we're witnessing now, in these latter days, the manipulation of the stock market, with GameStop and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which was also involved in GameStop. Stop. We see how the economy has nothing to do with the stock market. Because the stock market, before I was banned, broke the record, surpassed 40,000 on the Dow. And yet, our basic living is the worst it's ever been in our generation. Maybe not the 70s for me, but I was a little kid, so it was my parents that were for that one. But then they keep talking about how we have to get out and vote for the presidential election. And apparently nobody's read the Constitution. Our vote does not matter for the president or the vice president. And yeah, they're supposed to be voted separately. It's right there in the Constitution. The Electoral College, if I pronounce that right. They're the ones that vote for the president and the vice president. And when there's a tie or a dispute, Congress is supposed to settle it. Not the state of Florida. If you remember the 2020 or 2000 election. And so, yeah, the 2000, I keep wanting to say 20, the 2000 election, we have now exposed that America is split in half of those who vote, for the most part. And the press, with social media and the internet, have been allowed to bias their news to the political party that they affiliate with, rather than just giving us the facts as part of the news. And we saw this emerging as religion attacked the news back in the 80s. It's too violent. It's too violent. Think of the kids. And so the news got censored by religion. So much for our First Amendment rights. And so the deep state Dem press has been trying to tell you that we need to be angry so that we go out and vote to keep Trump out. America is in jeopardy. You better vote or we're all doomed. Yeah, that's an extortion threat. Telling us that our vote will make us guilty if Trump gets back into power. Because we all know what he's going to do. He's been telling us. Why should that shock you? And so the MAGA news, because there is no GOP anymore, there are no Republicans, they're all MAGA. But the deep state Dem press won't acknowledge this. It's all MAGA. You're either MAGA or you're out, like Liz Cheney. And so they're talking about, after the verdict of Trump that I told you about, and I called it, who's the prophet? They're now saying that you've got to get out and the election will determine Trump's real verdict. The verdict in the courts, not real. The vote verdict is the real vote. They're both using democracy, and that's what they keep telling and throwing in our faces, that America is a democracy. Your vote matters. And I think, is it CBS or something like that, that's America Decides? You probably don't know. But no, America does not decide. Constitution makes that very clear. And election after election after election after election after election has also made that very clear. We don't decide. Our vote does not count. I've known that in Utah. My vote never counts for the president. I figured that out when my first election year, and when I was 18 years old, 1988, registered to vote. My first election, and I knew well enough from watching the news on TV that I didn't want either party candidate to win, because that was against the Constitution. Here I am, an 18-year-old boy. And so, no, the Constitution makes it very clear. The popular vote does not decide the president. That's democracy. So we are not a democracy. But we keep being forced to accept that we're a democracy, and that it's our fault if our president doesn't win. We're to blame. And then we watch as our government refuses to do their job. And they say, well, you voted. It's just awful. And so, yeah, I've been warning you, this election is it. And that's right there in the Book of Mormon, 3rd Nephi, chapter 7. And so, there have been many Mormons over the course of years who have sent me a hate comment and threats, death threats. Ray Montgomery said I was going to be murdered on 8 April 2024. Oops. Who's the false prophet, Ray? Who's the true prophet? But many Mormons think that I'm wrong. In fact, all of them do. But there are some Mormons who think they know better than I do. That I'm not just wrong, I'm stupid. I don't know my scriptures. I'm misinterpreting them. I'm wrong. And so there have been some who've wanted to challenge me to a debate and complain that I banned them for their ad hominem abuse. They don't understand that you can't use ad hominems or any other fallacy in a debate. You automatically lose. You don't get points, you lose automatically when you throw in a fallacy. Debate rules. And so imagine a Mormon who thinks he knows better than me is going to debate me. And we're there on stage, big auditorium, we'll say BYU. I'm allowed to show my face on campus. And we're both sitting there up on the stand, and it's packed with Mormons. Everybody's against me. They are going to prove the church is true. And so the first question is asked by the moderator. What religion is the Book of Mormon? The Mormon gets to go first. Okay? And so he immediately responds, Christian. and the crowd roars. And then he goes on to support it by appealing to the subtitle of the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon title itself says it's another testament of Jesus Christ, and the crowd roars. It's still before 8 o'clock, so I gotta keep it down. And then he appeals within the Book of Mormon. 3rd Nephi, chapter 11, verse 8, and the crowd cheers. And he bears his testimony. I know this is true. And the crowd leaps to their feet. They're just cheering. They're breaking the auditory noise volume for BYU. The moderator's trying to calm down, keep it down, keep it down. And they're not listening to him. They rush the stand and they pick up the Mormon, lift him up on their shoulders, high above the air, and then they all file out. Jesus, 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 Jesus. And then the auditorium's empty. I'm left there sitting all by myself. I never got a chance to respond. They didn't care to let me respond. They had no interest in hearing me. First Nephi chapter 1 verse 2. What religion is it? Oops. It's the learning of the Jews. The religion of the Jews. And so it is not Christian. The Jewish Christ is not Jesus. And if you go but, because you don't know the religion of the Jews. Nothing is the same as Christianity. And so you read the Book of Mormon, not pray to find out, is this Book of Mormon true as Christian with Jesus? Oh, I feel good about it. I now know better than Travis. And so you keep reading, and you get down to where Lehi gets a book, and he learns about the destruction of Jerusalem, and he learns about the coming of a Messiah. And how did the Jews respond to Lehi talking about the Jewish Christ in the future? The Jews did mock him because of the things which he testified of them. For he truly testified of their wickedness and abominations, and he testified that the things which he saw and heard, and also the things which he read in the book, manifested plainly concerning the coming of the Messiah, and also the redemption of the world. And when the Jews heard these things, they were angry with him, even as with the prophets of old. Wait a minute. These are the prophets of old. They had cast out stones and slain. They also sought his life that they might take it away. Okay? And so, what is the Jewish religion concerning the Jewish Christ? You gotta go to the Jewish law called Deuteronomy. Chapter 18. Even Christians know this because they've replaced this with Christian Jesus. This is the Jewish Christ. This isn't Jesus. Verse 15, chapter 18. The Lord thy God will raise up unto thee a prophet from the midst of thee, of thy brethren like unto me. Unto him ye shall hearken. And Joseph Smith, as you see in the footnotes, right? Where's the footnotes? Oh, I don't have foot. That's right. I'm working on another project since I'm forced into retirement. The footnotes would lead you to Joseph Smith History, verse 40, the second vision. He says, precisely as it stands in Acts. And that comes from Deuteronomy, the Jewish Christ. In Acts, the Jewish Christ. And Joseph Smith is talking about the coming of the Jewish Christ. Joseph Smith is talking about the future coming of the Jewish Christ. Where did he get that idea from? 2 Nephi, chapter 3. This is about Joseph Smith. Everybody knows it. Mormons all accept it. There should be no debate. So verse 9, and Joseph Smith shall be great, like unto Moses, the Jewish Christ. From Deuteronomy 18, 15 through 19. Joseph Smith History, verse 40. But Joseph Smith in the second vision is talking about a future Christ, not Joseph. So we go back to verse 5. Wherefore Joseph of Egypt truly saw our day, and Joseph of Egypt obtained a promise of the Lord that out of the fruit of his loins he would have a son through the generations, a future son, future descendant, would raise up a righteous branch unto the house of Israel. But Joseph was the house of Israel. Talking about a future Christ. And that's Joseph. Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith is Messiah, Ben, son of Joseph of Egypt. That's a Christ of the latter days for the Jews in the Jewish religion. Right there in the Book of Mormon. Now Mormons are going, no. It's about Joseph, yes, but Joseph is not our Christ. Because you deny the Jews. But not the Messiah. Now pay attention. Pull out your English grammar books. Joseph Smith is to be remembered in the covenants of the Lord that the Messiah, this is Messiah ben David, David Moses, son of David, man like Moses, David Moses. Curiously, it's the same phonetic transliteration from the 18th dynasty pharaohs called Tau Mose. David Moses. Huh. So Joseph Smith, to be remembered in the covenants of the Lord, that Messiah ben David should be made manifest, raised up. Remember Deuteronomy? Deuteronomy is Messiah ben David. Joseph Smith, verse 40, Messiah ben David, as he's Messiah ben Joseph. unto them. Who's them? If Joseph Smith is Messiah ben Joseph, who's them? Mormons. In the latter days. That's the Jewish religion. A future Messiah ben Joseph to prepare the way for Messiah ben David. Not Roman period Jesus of Christianity. Very plain and precious, right here in your Book of Mormon, and all Mormons deny the Book of Mormon. You're out celebrating, getting drunk on Kool-Aid. I know there are Mormons who drink alcohol. It's all right there in the Book of Mormon. So, you need more further confirmation? It's all over the place. And thus we're going to get to Genesis 1. Section 103, verses 16 and 17, talking about the latter days. Here it is. We should expect to see Messiah ben Joseph, Messiah ben David, having been prepared by preparing Mormons for his coming. Therefore, I will raise up, Deuteronomy pattern, here it is, unto my people, them in the latter days, Mormons, a man who shall lead them like as Moses. For Mormons are the children of Israel and need to be led out of bondage. And Oaks just confessed in April conference. And maybe it was his orders. Maybe he was upset that I exposed this. He was the one who said it. I didn't take Oaks out of context. I don't need to. Your underwear is the symbol of your bondage to Jesus with the covenant paths, the laws of the temple. Dear God. And not a single one of you heard it. You all went on vacation. And then you get mad at me. You're angry. You mock me. You try to hurt me. Commit crimes. Try to murder me. And so, yes, everything is the Jewish prophecies of this basic core religious belief of the Jews. And I've been trying to go over with you all these years how all the scriptures are prophesying and revealing this. Prophecy is predicting the future. Revelation is giving the day and the hour. Despite the person who added into Matthew, no man knows the day or the hour, even though Matthew gave it to you. And the majority of the world are fooled, because the majority of the world are fooled by Christianity that altered the Bible. Alright, so back to Genesis. Now be careful. The state of Utah banned the Bible. Was it last year? For being porn. And YouTube. Ooh. Don't you dare threaten YouTube viewers with porn, Travis. Right. Whatever. Who's the enemy of the people? YouTube. Led by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They want to destroy you. And so, the majority of you never knew that this comes from the Heliopolis creation glyph of the Egyptians. The dividing of the waters from the waters and the dry land appearing. Heliopolis creation glyph. Ta-da! I've been going over it with you all this time. That's why I use the Heliopolis creation glyph in pictures over the years. Unfortunately, I don't think YouTube banned it because they're naked. Because they say they're naked in the Bible too. And so, despite the Ogdode insertion for verse 2, that's not intended to be in the Heliopolis creation glyph, but nonetheless, we see that continuation of the Heliopolis creation story continued into Genesis chapter 2 and 3. But you see that the Jew who's writing this is imposing his Jewish understanding in there. And so thus Yah is the God in chapter 1, and Yahweh is his new name after completing the creation in Genesis chapter 1. And so he is following the law of Deuteronomy. These books were not written in this order by one person. Each book was written by a different author. And so everybody is required to follow the law, Deuteronomy. And thus, their stories have to be about a man like Moses. And so Yah is the man like Moses, who I just went over with you, is a Mormon in the latter days, prophesied and revealed by Joseph Smith. But I haven't given you the date yet, even though I have over the years. You missed the latter days. Spoiler alert. And so thus, it's kind of useless for the enemy to attack me now, because Mormons missed it. You won, enemy. Good job. You failed in 2020, but you at least got Mormons to be deceived. And so now we're all doomed. I already gave the prophecy. I've already exposed your plot. It's useless to attack me now. But nonetheless, they still do, because their feelings are hurt. And they want revenge. And so, this is the birth of Moses. Messiah, ben David, man like Moses. Thus Egyptian. The Egyptian Christ is known as Son Amen, also portrayed as Horus, using the Greek. It's Har or Hor. I don't care about the vowels. If you know anything about me having deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, you understand I don't care about vowels. It is our current society that emphasizes vowels for distinguishment of the meaning of the names. And I don't think people really care about the meaning of the names anymore. Parents usually just name their kids because it sounds good, and it may not be a big tease for their peers. I don't know. But regardless, that's the way things crumble. And so, yeah, this is the birth. Literally the birth. The prophesied Messiah is in the womb of a woman. Her water breaks, and he comes out, and then takes his first breath of air. And this is where scholars get confused, and they don't understand. How can it be a water creation in Genesis chapter 1, but a soil creation in Genesis chapter 2? They're confused. They try to appeal to the documentary hypothesis, but that's just stupid. That German didn't know his Bible. And so when you understand that this is like the birth of a baby, now you understand why it's both soil and water. Because seed penetrates the egg. There's the physical creation of soil, or clay, as it's also portrayed in Egyptian. You have Ptah, or the other deity, Khnum, who fashions man on a pottery wheel. And that's the best that they can explain for what goes on in a woman's womb with the creation of man. Is that once the seed penetrates the egg, boom, a big light show, and the creation kicks into development. And it's all physical, it's all flesh, soil. But the baby in the womb is the water, encased in water. Then the water breaks, and out comes the baby. Sex ed. Everybody should know this. And there it is, right there in the Bible. And not a single scholar knows this. And thus the reason for the two. It's all talking about the same thing. And yet also prophesying about the coming of the man like Moses, the one mighty and strong. Section 85. Messiah ben David, the Jewish Christ. And so then you see in verse 14, and God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven, to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs." There's the revelation. There's where he's coming. But signs refers to his coming, not as a baby, though there were signs in the heavens for his birth. Remember, he's a Mormon? I've done the videos. But this is specifically talking about him as the man like Moses, because signs in Paleo Hebrew is the letter A tipped on its side and two X's, the first and the last letter of the Paleo Hebrew alphabet. And so the A has the two X's at the bottom of it, which is formed last. The X's are formed last when making the A. So what happened over the United States of America from 2017 to 2024? 3 days of darkness from the sun god at noonday. Sun, Amen, of the Egyptians. They gave you the date of his latter day coming to Mormons. 2017 is the first year of the latter days. 2024, the last year of the latter days. And all the Jewish authors knew these dates. They knew the day and the hours. So the question that Mormons don't want to answer, did my Christ come? Because you missed him. Just as you missed Joseph Smith being your Christ who founded the Church of the Latter-day Saints. And yes, Mormons know the Book of Mormon that says, if you name the church after Moses, then it be Moses' church. If you name it after a man, it'd be a church of a man. If you name it after me, then it is my church. But the Messiah ben David was not on the earth when Joseph Messiah ben Joseph Smith, set up the church in preparation for the Latter-day Saints for their Christ. And remember, it's all about seed, egg, baby. It's the Mormon Christ, raised in Mormonism. He's going to be a Mormon, human being. And thus why it was originally the Church of Christ, and then the Church of the Latter-day Saints. In that meeting in 1834, Sidney Rigdon raised his hand and proposed a name change. Sidney Rigdon. Now, do you understand why Sidney Rigdon was the major author of the Book of Mormon? Because, yeah, Book of Mormon's not literal history. And so, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the abominable church. It is holding Mormons in bondage. All scriptures prophesy of this. When you use Joseph Smith's key in section 103, verses 16 and 17. I just demonstrated it yet again for you. This is about the Christ. He's going to be born. And his latter days, where he starts his ministry in Utah, the headquarters of Mormons. And if you recall, Brigham Young did not get to Congress and designate Utah to be the name of the territory. He had already called it Deseret. And so it was an Antichrist, anti-Mormon Korihor who designated the land as Utah, and thus paved the way for the prophecy to be fulfilled. He didn't know it. He didn't believe it. He's most likely Christian. I don't know. But all Mormons know, top of the mountain. And so Moses, when he starts his ministry in the story version of the law, Moses goes up to the top of a mountain. The first vision. So now do you understand what Joseph Smith is doing with selections from the book of Moses, chapter 1? It's at the top of the mountain. It's the start of the latter days. And his confrontation with the false Christ, the false prophet, leading the great and abominable church, Lucifer. So the gospel story of Matthew, a Jew, so it's the religion of the Jews. Matthew is telling us in chapter 1 that the name of his man like Moses is going to be Jesus, because it's going to follow the prophecies of Isaiah. He doesn't name Isaiah, but he calls his character Jesus. And if you knew Hebrew, you'd know that Isaiah is salvation of Yah. Jesus is Yah of salvation. Thus the Jewish author is being clever, talking about a story form for the prophecies from Isaiah. And so when Isaiah talks about the wounds in his hands, I've engraven thee in the palms of my hands, the Matthew author creates a story saying 9-inch nails engraven in the palms of his hands. not really engraven. And so Christians, having replaced the Jews with Christianity, now say, oh, it's true. There is no more prophecy and revelation because they all happened during the Roman period of time when the Jews were utterly exterminated by the Romans. And thus Jesus fails to establish the kingdom, fails to establish the millennial reign of peace, fails to save the Jews, dies. Oh, but wait, he's given a second chance in the future time, which is the exact time for the Jewish latter days. But Jesus never showed. Guess what, Mormons? Your Christ showed. And you have mocked him. You've gotten angry with him. You have committed crimes against him. You've sought to ruin him. You've sought to murder him. And you think you're the good guys? You think you've owned him? Simply because you declare falsehood and claim it's true? Because we can keep going. Because this talks about the Exodus. Moses, after getting his first vision in Utah, goes immediately to the elders of Israel. In the gospel stories, or actually I think it's post-gospel, Acts I believe, there's 70. Let's see if we can confirm the source of 70. 99 Luftballons. Times 7. Oh, no, Luke 10. After these things, the Lord appointed other 70 also, and sent them two and two, before his face. So that's why Joseph Smith had two quorums of 70. One for the High Council of Zion, the administrative branch, and the other 70 were missionaries to attend with the quorum of 12 traveling apostles. Big difference, but that's where Joseph Smith got that idea from. It's from Luke chapter 10. So yeah, Jesus. But it has to do with the elders of Israel. And so, I wonder if there is a letter to the presidency of the 70. Back in those early years. I wonder. But also 70. Now, yeah, I know the Septuagint means 70 in Greek, but it was not by 70 people. In fact, that was a whole lie to fool people into trusting the authority of their version of the translation of the Septuagint. But in 2020, when the Exodus occurs, all of the prophecies are getting fulfilled. I am still kind of amazed, and I'm kind of wondering, it was very hot yesterday. I wonder if we're going to have another heat wave this summer. But I'm retired. Mormons failed. I'm not interested in partying the waters again, but in 2020, I came out with the videos warning Mormons. If something happens, be ready and prepared to gather and meet, because nobody was following me. We didn't have meetings at the Waters of Mormon. And so I was trying to get people to know what to do if something happens. and told you to meet at the off-ramp at the Green River area. And then we'd all gather together if something were to happen, and then we'd follow the I-70 to go back to Zion, which is southern Illinois, not Missouri. That's the Danite trap. And as I'm learning, their move of their sacred headquarters was Nauvoo. And then they were even plotting to build another one called Zarahemla as a backup plan in case they got exposed in Nauvoo by Joseph coming. And he eventually did, but they didn't get Zarahemla built in time. Nonetheless, they blamed it on Joseph. It's all part of their plot. All right there in the Joseph Smith papers. And so, yeah, the same thing still applies, but I have no idea. You all failed. We need to all go together. And that was the only way I could figure out what to do back in that day, despite all the prophecies getting fulfilled. And then shortly thereafter, the news came out and said that Green River has dried up because of the drought we had. So, I don't know. I mean, Mormons are supposed to eventually get riled up by the prophets to war against each other. That's already happening, per se, with all of the people being charged with murder that's going on, and abuse of children, and psychological abuse. I warned you about psychology being abusive and a national security threat. And so, yeah, I saw on the church news, after warning you of the abuse of psychology, church thing comes out and says, psychology is true. Go and conform and comply with your drugging to follow the covenant path. So once you know the church is false, when you hear them say stuff like that, you know that they're wanting to hurt you. That poor little third world missionary was abused by family services. Psychologists are born and bred at BYU to be abusers. And so yes, you got all of the abusive psychologists getting exposed now, and the church is still doubling down, wanting people to trust family services. If you've not learned, the church doesn't want you to learn. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, destruction is coming. And utter destruction. And the Book of Mormon warned you that if you refuse your Christ, if you refuse to believe, if you get the wrong interpretation, utter destruction. There will be no Zion. And I don't think Mormons have got that through to their head yet, that there will be no Zion. Because corruption cannot sustain itself as a government entity. Even though fear and abuse and violence is how they control the masses, along with rewriting history. As I've told you, the church, when they did their AI thing, they actually went to Google and said, we want our information first on the search engines. We do not want AI telling people what we want them to know about our church. And so, yeah, you type in, what was the name of Joseph Smith's church? Oops. Who are the bad guys? Who's the one that warned you? So, we're done. Even though I could keep on going, because I could talk about Samuel, or Samson, yeah, Samuel too, Samson, Samuel is name of God. That's a hilarious one. The Jewish authors are hilarious. And then Samson, I mean, that's a tragic story. That applied with my 1986 summer dream that I just had a revised version of right before I was shut down. Just tragic. I saw abuse of a woman named Beth, a little girl, back in kindergarten, and ever since then I've been an advocate for women, and the church has abused women so severely that I am their enemy. They do not see how they've been miseducated, indoctrinated with the Kool-Aid, and how they are the enemy. They don't see themselves as the abusers. They will love to claim they're abused, not by the church. It's just sad. Makes me cry. All I wanted was one woman to be with me, and it ain't gonna happen.